Hello.
Hi. I'm over here now.
We're on the same side of the table.
And on the other side of the table is our friend Tyler.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome to Summon Greater Podcast, my dude.
I really appreciate it. I'm so excited.
This is a podcast about homebrew and homies.
Homebrew and homies.
As we decided
I don't know anything
episode.
about homebrew, but I know a lot about homies.
That's fine.
So,
Perfect.
yeah.
The cool thing about Tyler is that not only is he my friend, he's also my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So this is pretty cool.
It is really cool. Yeah. And I needed something to do tonight, so.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Get you out of the house. Get you away from stuff.
Yeah.
So we're hanging out.
My children were crying at the dinner table over their pancakes for whatever reason. And then I was like, bye, honey. I gotta go. She was like, okay, have fun.
Oh, no.
Poor kids.
Yeah, they'll live.
This guy's got kids. Poor guy.
3 of them.
That makes you a de facto DM.
Does it really?
Yes.
Why? Because like you get like the dad energy, or
Because you're already wrangling cats. It's basically the same
that's
thing.
really true. Yeah, that's really true. Actually, yeah.
You've got half the skills necessary to be a DM.
Excellent. I should do it then.
I don't know if it
Yeah, you
works
should.
the same in reverse. Someone's going to have to get back to me on whether being a DM makes you a better father once you become one.
Oh, that's actually a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I feel like you could write like some kind of a thesis or something.
I
on
feel
that,
like you could.
You know,
Probably. I think we're onto something. Better ask my therapist wife about that one.
yeah, you should. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I sound nasty because I got influenza A, baby, and then follow that up with a double ear infection and a paratonsillar abscess. So I got hit by a fucking truck, dude, and I'm gonna be coughing a little bit. But
This is the best you've sounded
little bit.
in the last week and a half.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here today to talk about you, Tyler.
Me.
What the fuck is up with that?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I really don't.
So when I met you, I was dating your sister, obviously, so there was a little bit of a
Yes.
thing there.
There was just a little bit. Yeah.
But she and I had already been playing D&D together for a while, and how did the conversation come up, like, about, like, what is the D&D thing with you and her?
I honestly can't even remember. I think so when we met, I was working at a youth group up in the Chicagoland area, and I think the first time that we met was at my son's like 4th or 5th birthday, 4th birthday, right? Yeah, because our 3rd wasn't here yet, and that was just kind of like hanging out, getting to know each other a little bit and whatever. And then when we were still up there, I know Sophia was helping me with the youth group. And so I was taking her back and forth from the city all the time. And I think it just randomly came up in conversation. Like she was like, "Oh, my friends and I, we play D&D." And I'm just like, okay, like I didn't really think much of it.
Right. It was just a car conversation. At that point.
Yeah. So I didn't I was like, oh, like I'm glad that my sister like found a hobby in the midst of having no free time anyway at school. But then I can't remember when we started like really talking about it in earnest, when I realized like, oh, like this is a thing for them. I think it had to have been during COVID when you first moved down here.
Oh,
and you
wow.
guys started like playing and hosting here.
Okay.
And that's when I realized like, oh, they like do this,
Yeah.
not just like, oh, they roll dice once a quarter, So yeah, I think it just kind of like came up, and then I just kind of realized after a while, like, this is for real, I didn't realize either like how extensive and pervasive like the hobby was for you guys. I think until like, remember when we were all living here under the same roof after we moved down from Chicago, and I remember Ellie, my wife, was telling me, she was like, "Oh, they're really serious about this." And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." Wow.
Yeah.
So
we're a little crazy.
yeah, but I think it just kind of like organically kind of came up,
That's cool. I guess I didn't realize it was that recent even. That's really fun.
Well, not even that. I mean, it's crazy to think too how fast time flies because like that was like over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
about that,
wild. Yeah, right.
Yeah. That
So, yeah,
dang.
yeah.
I keep thinking about like, oh yeah, when I moved down here the other day, as if I'm not like, over a year and a half married now.
Yeah, that's weird to think about too. That's wild. When she first mentioned it, I guess I didn't think much of it because I didn't really have much of like a frame of reference for D&D other than, images of the iconic D20.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's the game where you roll like 70 dice and they each say something different and you like have your character with your sword and that was it. And then stories of, like kids in basements in the 80s and what they were up to and all that. That's all I ever knew. So I was
Just
just
images
like,
of Stranger Things in your head.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Stranger Things and like satanic panic and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, oh, I guess I'm glad she has a hobby then. That's cool, I guess.
Hoping you're all right.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that was my whole frame of reference at that point. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And then that obviously very quickly evolved for you into a project that you did during your time, like you said, working with the youth group.
yeah,
You actually got to kind of take and make your own, basically make your own like system for the kids, which was
yeah.
really fun. When you told us about that, I was like so fucking excited.
That
dude.
is like there are very few things in my life that I've done where I look back and I go, I did a good job. Like I know I'm a good husband, I know I'm a good dad, and then I made a cool campaign, and that's about like the culmination of my life at this point. Like those three things, husband, dad, and I made something cool one time. That was so much fun.
It is really hard to beat a really good, satisfying D&D campaign as like a pivotal moment in your life.
Yeah. I mean, we've played a couple one shots now with you as my DM, and like even just being a player, when the campaign is done and you have like a good ending that ties it together or hangs you off a cliff just the way you like it. Like even just as a player, you're just like, oh yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that. So then running one back then, like, was just magnificent. Such a fun experience. A lot of hard work.
I was gonna say, walk us through all that because like
I will. Yeah. So it's funny because I had a student who she had casually mentioned to me too that she was playing D&D with her friends. And so the images that came up in my mind was like, they're hanging out in each other's basement. They're rolling dice. They're pretending to be orcs. Good for you, kid. Like, happy you have friends. That was my biggest sentiment. And then her mother caught wind of the fact that she was playing Dungeons and Dragons with her friends.
Oh boy.
And she took all of her like gaming manuals and all of her D&D stuff from her and brought it into the pastor's office at the church and put it on the desk. And she literally said, my daughter is playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're my pastor. Figure out how evil it is and get back to me. Wow. To which my pastor he had no frame of reference for this game whatsoever, right? Like other than what he had heard again, like the satanic panic back in the 80s. So he just kind of assumed like, oh, she's probably into some bad stuff. I should take a look at this. And either by some miracle or divine providence or luck or what have you, he brings all of it into my office and he's like, look, you're the youth guy. I'm delegating this task to you. Figure out how evil this is and get back to me so we have something to tell this hysterical mother.
I love this approach.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I have nothing better to do, I guess. And I read the D&D, I don't know exactly what it's called, the gaming manual or the handbook.
Probably a player handbook.
The player handbook.
Yeah, Player's Handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yeah. And I sat in one office day, I read the whole thing cover to cover. And my ultimate conclusion was, this seems like a fun game. And it seems like it's really easy for people to get into. And cool, and coming at it from like the youth pastor Christian perspective, I was just like, Pepsi is bad for you if you have too much of it. Like we're not going to do this whole, like, I'm not going to interrogate children and ask if they're like slitting cats' throats over a copper bowl or anything. Like, because I really don't think that's happening. You know what I mean? Like, so it seems to me as though we have a student playing a game with her friends. And that was my conclusion. I presented that to my pastor, and he was like, all right. He talked to the mom again, and she said she appreciated my perspective, but she was still uncomfortable with it, so she's going to keep all of her stuff. So I said, I'll make you a deal. I keep her stuff, and I will create a campaign for her with all of her friends from youth group that you know and love and trust, and we will do a campaign together. It's in a safe environment that you trust. It's with people that you love, and it'll be like the youth group's like love letter to this girl. Okay. And she said, go for it. I had no idea what I was doing, like at all. So I reread the player handbook, and I watched Matt Mercer's series on YouTube, Tips for Beginning DMs. I watched the entire playlist, understood about a third of it. And I just started coming up with mechanics that I could understand and wrap my head around. And I created this campaign that took place during a zombie apocalypse in the United States. And all of the kids in the youth group, they were all players. And we created this thing, or I created this thing. And because I had so many kids, I realized really quickly that a typical D&D campaign is what, like 4 to 6 people ish, something like that. I had 20 kids who all wanted to play. Yeah. And I was like, I can't do character sheets for all of them.
No.
So I broke them up into groups, and each group was a faction of survivors with certain abilities, like buffs and debuffs. And then it emphasized you would have to really work together, because some encounters that I designed, if you were part of like the strength group, then there would be this really big physical encounter with a lot of fighting. And so you guys would kind of be like at the forefront for that encounter, and the people kind of just like waiting for their turn would like run support in some kind of passive way. So everybody got to directly and indirectly do something. It was a constant rotation of people. I didn't know how to roll for outcomes. I didn't know what all the dice meant. So I used a D20, a D6, and I think that was it. And the D20 was for deciding outcomes of encounters, and then the 6 was for movement. Because I had like boards and stuff. I'll get into the mechanics here in a minute. But basically, like the D20, if you rolled a 1 to a 5, that was a certain outcome, and then like 6 to 10 was a certain, you know. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not assigning a number to an outcome. I'm assigning like a range, you know.
Yeah, like there wasn't like a, if you hit this you succeed, otherwise you fail kind of a thing.
Yeah. And it was the kids that had never been in this world whatsoever. That was easy for them to wrap their heads around, because I had to take into account the different kinds of kids that I had.
I was gonna say, what age group was this?
This was all high school, so freshmen to seniors. Okay. So they're all mixed together. I had some kids that were more like creative types who loved this kind of thing. I had some kids that were like track and field and basketball stars that could give a crap about fantasy anything. And then I had some kids where if it didn't involve a screen, they couldn't function, right? And there was no screen. It was a table and your friends, you know. So I had to make it appealing for everybody.
Yeah.
And then I came up with this idea where, what if I integrated physical challenges with the tabletop aspect? So as the narrative of the campaign would progress, half of your encounters would be on the tabletop doing like the very heavily role-playing stuff for the really artsy creative kids. And then the ones who like can't sit still, then the next encounter would be some kind of physical challenge. So if like a nuclear radiation storm was blowing through the city and you'd had to like hoard supplies and get into a bunker, well then they'd have to run from the youth room upstairs to the sanctuary and get inside the supply closet and pull out a case of water that I had set there. And then 2 people or more would have to carry it all the way back to another classroom, and they'd have to hunker down and have a timer going the whole time. And so then we're like running around too.
Yeah.
And I underestimated the first campaign how long it would take. I was like, we're going to bust this out in 2 hours. It'll be a fun activity. And it took 6.5 hours.
I was gonna
A one shot. And because I had no frame of reference, I was like, well, it's D&D. People build their lives around it. It needs to be long. And I didn't realize like how long it was. And it was this huge hit. And at the end of it, we wanted to roll for the ending of the whole narrative. And the girl who had been through this weird thing, like with her mom and kind of being outed as like potentially evil or whatever, I had this giant inflatable D20. It was like this big, like a beach ball.
Yeah.
And all the
Oh my
kids
gosh, I
cheered
love
her
those.
on as she rolled for the end of the
Oh
campaign.
man.
Nice.
And as luck would have it, she got like one of the best endings. And we
Hell
all
yeah.
celebrated together and it was fun. And then we did the second one a year later. And that one, it was the same format and the narrative would continue. And that one took nonstop, no breaks. That one was 12 hours long.
Oh.
I was gonna say, because I remember you telling
Yeah.
me about one of them that was like a lock-in all night.
That was the second one. That went from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Wow.
Pancakes at 7:30 and then go to bed. Like that was a monster of a campaign.
So freaking cool.
And that took me, I was in the office for a good 2 months, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week planning that one.
Wow. Yeah, I bet.
And again, because I didn't know what I was doing. But that's all of it
Well,
in a nutshell.
if it makes you feel any better, that's probably about the amount of time that I've sunk into my campaigns.
Oh, perfect.
So
Good.
you're not off very far. That's
Yeah.
that's about right for the DM
Good.
prep.
But yeah, it was cool. That was the largest creative endeavor I've ever undertaken before and probably ever will. Like, I hope I can do things like that in the future, but that was something that I'm really proud of. The kids responded great to it. I mean, we destroyed the inside of that church building with that, especially with that second campaign.
Yeah.
Like, it got to the point where during one of the physical challenges, the kids were like, can we pretend that we have grenades? And I was like, what are you going to use? And they're like, this. And they just start like throwing folding chairs at each other. And they're like tipping tables over for bunkers. And they're smacking each other with pool noodles. Like, I have a machete. I just cut your head off. And they're just beating each other senseless. And it's 5 a.m. And it was awesome.
Hell yeah.
And then you gather them all downstairs and they all like sip tea and coffee and they roll dice, the more creative ones. And they're like, oh, good. I'm glad I'm able to make it past this locked door. You know, like the whole spectrum was represented.
That's awesome.
That is so cool.
It was really fun. It was really, really good. Yeah.
So would they like, how'd you pick factions? Did they kind of choose for themselves?
Yeah, so the only requirement that I set was I wanted as even a number of possible of kids. So I was like, if everybody picks the strength faction, or I forget the name that I called them, if everybody picks that because they all just want to be a berserker, then like we're not going to really have like a balanced game. So I told them like really think about it. And just trust me that I've tailored this for everyone to get a shot at something really cool. And they all just kind of like, I kind of like based on their personalities, just kind of like went to where I figured they would.
Yeah.
And they got with their groups and they had fun with
Nice.
Nice.
So you had like, there was one faction was like a weapons specialists. They were just called the weapons team. And they were really good at weapons. So like your fighter class or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was one that we called the psychers. And due to some kind of, what would you call it? Like
Mutation.
radiation mutation, insert vague post-apocalyptic superpower here. Their neurons got rewired and now they can like use like psychic abilities. And the kids who I figured would like that, they drifted over there. And we had the stealthers that the kids called them, and they were the ones that snuck everywhere and, you know, and like your rogue or what have you. And there was another one. The ghouls. I stole that from Fallout, and they were hideously mutated monsters that still had their sentience and self-awareness, but they were the ones that would go into like danger zones and like complete like hazardous missions for everybody else, you know. And so like I took them down to like the semi-flooded church basement and had them wait around boilers and stuff and like look for clues with flashlights and everything. And I'm like, you would be so poisoned if you weren't a hideous, disgusting creature. Good for you. And they're like, yeah, we did something, like stuff like that.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Putting kids in basements. I know it sounds weird, but like they enjoyed it.
That's a real thing. I was that way.
Just get down there and play in the dark. I don't know.
I mean, there are a lot of kids that do that. So.
Yeah.
And they would do that without being asked or would sneak off to do it anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's it's heartwarming from the perspective of the girl who had her materials taken. Because just like, what a response from you to take such, and it like put a ton of work into normalizing this thing for her and for her mom. That would make me really happy if I was that kid. And I just think that like, I see that kind of thing happen culturally a lot when, teachers of our generation are into D&D in some capacity because like they grew up with the Satanic Panic and they know how to like stifle it so effectively.
And I think that it kind of goes back to like that Pepsi analogy, like anything's bad for you if you do it the wrong way. Like the idea of, edgy, disenfranchised kids like trying to summon the Dark Lord in some literal way. Like for one, like we know that really just like wasn't happening. Number one. If anybody was trying to do that, probably didn't work. You know what I mean? Like we know that wasn't happening. And so the conclusion that I had come to, and some of my like trusted leaders of the youth group too, I asked them about the idea and kind of consulted them, and they were all just like, these kids just need friends. And how you make friends is by finding something that you all love together. That's like the best and the quickest way to make friends. You like this too, let's do it together now.
Yeah.
And they were like, so let's go for it. And none of us had ever played a D&D campaign before. Me or my leaders or my students at all, except for her, the one girl. And we didn't tell her we were doing this.
Oh, nice.
I said I was building a big activity for them, and I need everyone to participate, and it's going to take a long time. And they were all just like, okay. They thought we were like going on an outing or something. And then when they walked in, and I was like, welcome to the freaking Thunderdome. Like, here are your Nerf guns. Here are your assignments. Here is your face paint. And here are like hoodies, to blend into the dark. Here's what we're doing. Everyone was like, no freaking way. So it was really cool.
Yeah. No one could have expected that.
No, I mean, I didn't even see it becoming what it did. Again, I was like, this will take like 2 hours, whatever. It'll be fun. We'll throw some dice at each other and be done. But then it ended up being this. I mean, I still text with those students every now and again, and they're all like grown and have jobs and moved out of their houses. But I still like once or twice a year, my phone will ping and it'll be one of my former students from youth group say like, remember the zombie campaign? Like they still think about it.
Yeah.
And it warms my heart every time.
Yeah. Wow.
I hope I get to do something like that again in the future. So, yeah. With a little bit more know-how now that I've like played some real campaigns and stuff.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, I think you're well on your way to being able to do something like that because like you said, we got to actually run a couple D&D one-shots and you actually got to make a character and jump into the world.
That was awesome. I really want to do one again.
It was so fun to see you get into character, like way into character.
Oh yeah, the first session was so good, dude.
I think like I don't know how many people listen to this who like aren't like seasoned veterans of D&D, but just coming from like a total newbie's perspective, like that initial interaction when it's your first campaign and someone else at the table who's more seasoned in this hobby gets into character right away and speaks in their voice and their cadence and maybe uses some body language and stuff and like really starts role playing, there is that very first initial like, okay, weirdo, like I'm just here to hang out, you know. But I realized if I just let go and realized like we're all on the same page, like we're all being weird together.
Yeah.
Just go nuts. And then the drama kid, because I was part of drama club in high school, that kid came out and I was just like, okay, this is really freaking fun.
Yeah.
You know, like I can be whatever.
Yeah.
And it was fun for a night.
Yeah.
To be whatever my character was. I forgot. Oh, my
It was the Dragonborn.
the Dragonborn acolyte.
Mortarion.
Mortarion. Which I'm sorry, Games Workshop, I stole that from you. But yeah, and just like quote hedonistic text while swinging a morning star jumping out of a tree, missing my roll and breaking my ankles, and still being deluded enough to be like, I did something, you know, like it was so fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I think there's a little part of me that kind of feels like that guy. Like even when I trip and fall on my face, I'm like, I'm sure I made an impact somehow, you know?
Yeah. We've had a few comments in the last couple months from people that have just found this podcast and been like, I've never played in my life, but I've just kind of found out about the hobby, and I've found this podcast and like maybe a couple others, just a few videos, probably in some cases the same Matt Mercer videos that you found, and they comment and they're like, this is something I want to get into, but I don't know how. And I think you just described how pretty well, and highlighted the fact that like you don't know how, you don't have to know what the hell you're doing,
Right?
you know. You can truly, like from a bird's eye view, make whatever you want of it. But also like if you've got the time and you want to, run it rules as written, like you can kind of just work with your people. Like the people around the table don't care so much that you get everything exactly right.
Yeah.
They just want a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think just wanting a good story is what helped me as a player get over the initial like mechanics anxiety.
Yeah.
Because when we ran the first one shot that we did, I remember like you guys gave me like a little dice tray, and I had my tasty beverage, and I had my papers, and I barely knew what any of it was. Like I didn't know what roll initiative means, even though that's like the most iconic thing in the entire game.
Yeah.
I didn't know what each die was necessarily for, but I knew that I had my brother-in-law as a DM. And I knew that he would have a good story.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I would just have fun and just have, it sounds weird to say the courage, but like the courage to just be like, okay, so wait, like, what does this mean? I know someone's going to nudge me and be like, roll that one. You'll pick it up. Mm-hmm. And then you pick it up so fast.
Yeah.
Like I remember the second one shot, I felt so much more like, yes, this is what I do. And that's that stat. Perfect. And then get back into it again. Yeah. You pick it up so fast.
Yeah.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It does take courage getting into it and like having the courage to ask and say, I don't know what this means. Like y'all just said something and I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's totally okay. Because in the vast majority of groups that you're playing with, they want to teach you about this game that they love so much. And they want to share in the experience with people. And it's been so much fun finally being able to include you in something that I have loved for so long, and that my wife Sophia, your sister, has loved for so long, and now we get to do that together with you. And so just the fact that it is now a shared interest, like you said, that's it's about friends. It's about the people.
It is. And it's interesting because so I'm a teacher at a high school now, and when I'm chit-chatting with my students, especially those get to know each other conversations, they ask me like, what do you do in your free time? And, like I'm a teacher, I don't really have free time anymore. But I tell them like if I am to have just like my night, like this is just me doing whatever I want to do. I told them I either like to watch a good movie that makes me think and then go to bed because I'm a boring old person. I said, or playing D&D with my brother and sister. And they were like, it's so funny to see the reactions because you get like 95% of I got 95% of the class that was just like, really? Dungeons and Dragons? Teacher? Okay. And then you get that other 5% that's like, you play Dungeons and Dragons? You know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and those are the kids where you're just like, yeah, come here, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's fun because
awesome.
like then when like the naysayers or whatever leave your desk and you get surrounded by that little 5% that are just like, so do you have like an ongoing campaign or just like a one shot? And I'm just like, yes. Talk
Bring
to
it
me
to
about
me.
this. You know, do you think like we could do something like that? And I'm like, yes.
You're asking the right questions.
You know,
Exactly.
it's so fun to, especially I think because I've been working with like kids and students for so long, it's so much fun to talk to them about it, you know, because they're the ones that are seeking that community and that companionship like the hardest. And what is D&D if not just immersing yourself in community?
Yeah.
Like above mechanics, above gameplay, all that, like it's a community. And I think it's what, like, at least in my experience, like it just connects people so hard so fast, which is really fascinating, you know.
Yeah. And it's also cool now having people like you who are in positions of influence with these kids, like as a teacher, who you know about this game, and you, rather than looking at it from the perspective of the satanic panic that's kind of just seeped into our
Right.
culture, you have experience with it and you love it, and you're able to say like, this is totally fine.
Yeah, this is fine.
I think it's something that is becoming a lot more popular. It's D&D is slowly moving out of the satanic panic umbrella, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
It's interesting too because whenever anyone who's like outside of the hobby thinks about D&D, you immediately think of like the classic like fantasy genre. You've got like, you know, elves and orcs and paladins and fae and fairies and whatever.
Yeah.
And for some people that's just kind of like it kind of makes you roll your eyes, like I'm not trying to absorb some elf-eared universe right now, you know.
Right.
But
Not
then I
everyone
hear of like
reads
one of the
Tolkien.
campaigns that you guys ran that's like cyberpunk, like ultra futuristic, like interdimensional rifts and corporate espionage and all that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like D&D, like it has its lore and it has its setting, but ultimately if you want to take the skeleton of the mechanics and just build a universe for yourself, you can.
Yeah.
And for someone that has a little bit more of a creative or undiagnosed ADHD, whichever you want to call it, mind, that idea of like reality can be whatever I want is a lot of fun, you know? And I think especially for kids too, where they really are trying to make reality make sense, sometimes it's fun to make it not make sense with something like D&D.
Yeah.
Or maybe that is the only thing that does make sense for them, and that's what they need right now.
Yeah.
And that's just some of the stuff that I found like during the zombie campaign and everything. I still have all the old files, and I'll sometimes like reread my narrative and just like, ooh man, I remember, you know, and it's such a cool my thing. Like my wife doesn't get it like at all, but that's okay. I still love her, you know.
We'll keep her around.
Yeah. She's like, do you have fun playing pretend? Yes. Yes, I did.
Me and my friends.
Yeah. I'm back to pay bills now.
Yeah. That's right.
So yeah, it's been a wild ride, just the whole being a noob with D&D and then just kind of continuing to dabble in it. And it's an interesting position to be in too. The amount of D&D and D&D adjacent like content that I have just maniacally absorbed. Like that's kind of like that vicarious way to live in the realm of the hobby when you don't really have time to sit down at a table and play a campaign. Then you watch all the Critical Role that you can get your hands on, or you discover something like the Warhammer universe and you're just like, yes, fantasy, 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 you know? And I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that as well. Like, I don't really have the free time to invest in making or playing a campaign, but I do have the free time to occasionally doom scroll some fantasy stuff and just absorb stories and ideas and just enjoy that, you know? And that's kind of like the phase that I'm in right now. It's like, I have no free time, but YouTube's pretty great, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And you just kind of cross your fingers and hope for that time when you can sit down and start rolling again.
Yeah, I know you said that when we first jumped into like actual D&D, transitioning from playing your system, that you just kind of went narratively based. The mechanics were a little complicated as far as like figuring everything out. Would you say that you have like a favorite part of like the way that D&D works as opposed to like, I don't know, like other games or anything like that? Is there like something about it specifically that you're like, this is why I'm here?
Yeah, I really, man, I think I'm such a sucker for story. I just love a good story. I really do. And I adore the storytelling aspect. Thinking back when I was making that zombie campaign, I think the thing that I spent the most time on was getting my mechanics and my encounters in order, because it required like all of my focus so that I didn't like miss something. But what I enjoyed the most was writing the story for the kids and for myself, because I was like, this is actually turning out really good. So being taken through a compelling story as a player, that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, if I just attended a campaign and just sat there and did literally nothing, just listen to everyone engage a story, I would be content. But then getting to roll dice and be a character and all that, it's all just like icing on the cake for me. So really just being taken through a good story is like my favorite part.
Yeah.
And then that methamphetamine like high between the dice leaving your hand and like it rolling around, you're wondering what number you're going to get. Like, I can't describe that. It's equal parts exhilarating and absolutely horrifying. 'Cause you're just like, I could either be the hero or completely screw this entire thing up.
Yeah, break my ankles.
Break my ankles jumping out of a 50-foot tree like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like,
Still killed the guy.
I did.
Yeah, you landed on it.
I did. Yeah, see? So it's fine. There's no failure, just lessons learned. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Could you see, like, you know, even if it's dumbed down to age or whatever, could you see writing something like this for your own kids?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I figured.
1,000%. Yeah. We actually talked about it when we were on vacation this summer. The idea of, could we bring it down to like 1 or 2 dice, do kind of like the range thing, like 1 to 6 is this, and just a very simple, fun, like wholesome story that the kids could really get into, and they could sit down and they could hang out with Uncle Skyler and Daddy, and they could roll some dice, and you know, like my son, like, good job, buddy, like your lightsaber or whatever, like, you totally hit that dude and you got him and you saved everybody. Like, I really, like, my oldest, she'll be approaching 10. She thinks that she's ready for a full mechanics and lore campaign because she's got that like creative obsessive mind. And my son, he just wants to pretend to be a dragon and melt people, you know? So somewhere in the middle, I think they would adore it.
Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they would just adore that.
Yeah.
And then my youngest being 4, like,
She'll come around.
she's 4. You just board up the windows and wait for the storm to pass. You know what I mean? Like,
We give her a mermaid character and tell her she's swimming around and doing something.
Exactly,
And she'll
yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
over the moon.
Ice bolt. Yes. Good
Yeah.
job. Anyway, like,
Woo, good Good
That's
job.
that's her role when we play pretend together around the house anyway. Like my oldest comes up with the scenarios, my son describes all of our gear and how powerful it is, and then my youngest stands on the couch and just goes and apparently that makes us all win, you know. So
Exactly.
I think I've got my own party already. Like
Yeah, and that honestly, that brings up a really fun point. You basically are already running a campaign for them.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
guys have like this made up world where you guys will go out and just play pretend.
That's
with
true.
The kids.
Yeah.
It's essentially a D&D campaign without the dice.
It's true. Yeah, it's our game of pretend. Because I just have like an obsessive, meticulous mind. Our world of pretend that we created for ourselves began when my oldest was 4.
Dang.
And every single time we've ever played pretend with each other, it's been the same pretend game ongoing. So this universe that we've now built has like characters and stories and locations. And if we feel like playing like a different genre of pretend, well, then we got on our ship and we went to a different planet with a different feel and all that kind of stuff. So if we want to, like, if my son just like, he wants to play army, well, then we're going to go and revisit like our wartime storyline that we concocted 3 months ago and we pick up where we left off. And I'll occasionally write down like, okay, such and such date, played pretend, left off here, wartime storyline or whatever. And then when they're like, where did we leave off when we were fighting that one thing? And I'll go, okay, so we killed that one dude. And they're like, oh, yes, we got to go there now. And then we start playing pretend again.
That's awesome.
So it's been ongoing for
Yeah.
years, this universe that we've built.
That is so
And
cool.
it stimulates their mind and it's
Yeah.
a connecting point for us. And it gives me an excuse as a 32-year-old man to keep playing pretend, which is all I've ever
Totally.
wanted. You know?
Yeah. I feel like that's such a radical, but also basic shift in parenting from like what most of us are used to, because, you know, we everybody has some version of pretend that they're playing growing up. And, you know, everyone's heard the stereotypical response to that of like, all right, buddy,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But like,
Very cool.
you know, it's such a it's a thing of humility, really, to be actively engaged with it with your kids.
I appreciate you saying that. I've never really seen it that way. I've always kind of seen it maybe slightly more selfish. Just like, look, guys, if you're going to play pretend, you're going to do it right. Like in this house, when we play pretend, it's actually good. Like, you know,
This matters.
if you
there
want
are stakes.
exactly.
play correct or get corrected.
Yeah, exactly. If you want my attention, earn it. Like, make it good.
If you're gonna tell me you have a lightsaber, then it's not bendy, it's not a whip,
No.
it's a lightsaber.
That's
if you
right.
want a light whip, that's something else.
And it's canon colors because the colors mean something, and in this house we mean something. Like,
There's a crystal in it, and you have to go here and make it like this.
I do have to catch myself, like in the back of my mind, like the inner, like, actually, like Reddit moderator in me. When my son will be like, all right, Dad, so then like pretend you didn't know I had force powers, but I do. And part of me wants to be like, you can't just get force powers. You have to train. And we didn't do a training arc yet, but you're 7 and that's fine. And then we like have to move on because there are moments I have to catch myself and be like, no, that's okay.
It's like I have to feed
He'll
the
learn.
lizard brain a little bit.
Exactly. It's all right. He's a young boy. He needs to win. And that's fine. You know?
exactly.
Yeah. It's
Oh, man,
it's
that's
compelling stuff, the storylines that they come up with. Like, oh my gosh, the stuff kids come up with is incredible. Like they make you feel something sometimes. Like, it's wild.
It is crazy how like out of some of the most like random situations, you can just all of a sudden just get hit and be like, oh my gosh. Oh, like this is emotional now? I don't know where that came from. Like it's hit us in some D&D sessions where like we're doing like just the stupidest shit. And then all of a sudden some character's like, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah. You've told me about some campaigns that you guys have had where like because of the perfect blend of your narrative and then what your real life players are like dealing with in their lives circumstantially, like there are those occasions where like those two worlds sometimes meet, and then D&D starts to become like genuinely cathartic and helping people realize things about themselves. And then it's like, oh, this is important, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't expect that out of every single thing, but like every single campaign. But I mean, even just the look of just happiness on the one girl's face who got to roll the final beach ball D20. Like
Exactly.
that was a moment for her that was important,
Yeah.
you know? Or if I'm playing pretend with my kids and a character that the kids that we made up that they really love, I let them save that character's life and we like celebrate them like, you did such a good job, you're so powerful, and they're just like, yeah, I am, you know, like it's important, you know. And it's so interesting how like even as full-grown adults, just playing pretend with our friends, I mean that's essentially what D&D is, like with, you know, some structure and mechanics and stuff. Playing pretend with our friends from childhood onward is always something that like will always hold a place in our hearts, and it'll never go away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, all the way from somebody who is like full grown, they're away from all that stuff. They shoot a piece of paper into a basket when they make it. They're like, yeah, you know, and then they like walk away. Like it never goes away.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and that's what's so cool about this
Yeah.
is D&D is the hobby that said we refuse to let it go away, and it's just so much freaking fun.
Yeah. It's the game that refuses to grow up with you, and it brings you back to what you kind of had to let go of to move forward in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I get what you're saying, but I also think the game very much does grow alongside you. Like
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
especially when you think of like how your critical thinking skills develop as you get older.
Yeah.
And like media literacy, and you know, if you're like an introspective person, like how you think about yourself. An example I think of often is just like how I make my characters, because often when I've you know drawn up a new character, it's I've made the conscious decision to go, this is this part of my personality.
yeah,
That isn't necessarily the most outward facing part that I want to like kind of explore, and like what if I was more of this person, right?
right.
And sometimes you make a character thinking you're not putting any part of yourself in it, and you just let it be a surprise.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Exactly where I was going. Sometimes you make one and it's like, okay, this is intentionally not me, and then
Yeah.
you realize that it actually kind of was the whole time. Like
Yeah.
this is a part of myself that I've been repressing a little bit, maybe.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
it's very, very engaging as an adult with a functioning prefrontal cortex to play with.
Speak for yourself, man. Speak for yourself. I don't know what's happening,
It's fine too.
but yes.
It's very fun as that person to be with several more of those people at a table who, you know, have consumed a ton of media and who have let it influence them on a very deep level. You always see that rise to the surface. Those are the moments where just your friends make you cry around the table.
Yeah.
Is when you see them like really nail the essence of their own character.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember during the second zombie campaign, I was introducing, because of the way that the kids were going with like, I think we were like about 8 hours into the campaign at this point, and they were exhausted and they were making just boneheaded decisions every now and again during these encounters, and they were suffering the consequences of that. And I realized I was going to have to introduce like permanent character death here, like in a little bit, because I was keeping track of their hit points on like a spreadsheet projected on the wall, like from the computer. And I mean, these kids were hanging on by a thread. There was like a certain group of them where I was just like, next encounter, they're done. Like, even if it doesn't involve them, they're so weak. If they get breathed on, they're dead. And what happened was, a whole bunch of them, like I figured, next encounter, like 7 of the 20, like permanent death. Now we're only 8 hours into a 12-hour campaign, and these kids want something to do, So what we did is we said, if you're dead, you are allowed to give advice on tabletop encounters, but you can't roll or do anything.
Yeah.
But then during the physical challenges, you get to help me and my leaders be antagonists.
Nice.
So now you are zombies, and you try to kill other people in the physical challenges.
Yeah.
And they were elated knowing that they would have something to do. But when they all died after that encounter, the kids all kind of expressed, they were like, it just feels so anticlimactic. Like, you're looking at your character and this thing that you've invested time in, and then because a number on a screen says 0, like, you don't get to play anymore. They were like, one of them mentioned, do we get some kind of like a send off or a goodbye? One kid was like, so do I just like go home? It's like 3 a.m, So what we did is
Yeah, Jason, get out.
leave. You did this to your party. We held a funeral service for them, and I played taps on the speakers, and all the dead kids stood up in front, and we all went in front of them and like saluted them and shook their hand, and we were like, thank you for your contribution to this campaign. You're a zombie now. And the kids were just like, yeah, thanks. I do my best.
That is amazing.
And then they get to just run around and scream and hit people with pool noodles the rest of the night. But
it's
like,
a win-win.
It's a goofy example, but like being able to have a workaround where it's like you still get to have fun and participate, even though you wiped your whole party by being a bonehead, that meant something to them, and yeah.
I think that's like one of the core aspects of D&D is the fact that it's not a game that one person can win. There are no like winners and losers. You just have a bunch of people doing a bunch of stupid shit and then dealing with the consequences.
Yeah.
And you guys all have to unite together and handle your shit.
Yeah.
And like it's
true.
It can be chaotic, it can be frustrating, and it can be scary, but at the end of the day, you're all on a team working towards something really, really cool, often in the distance, in the horizon, for your character, for your group of people. And I mean, you get to push forward together, hoping for a better future. And it's something that's not taught in very many other areas of growing up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that kids do where they're basically told, like, if you don't score a certain percentage, you don't get this scholarship and you don't get to do the thing you want to do. If you don't win, you don't get to keep doing this activity, whatever. You have to be done. You're whatever. Other people get to take your shot because you failed out of it or you screwed up. Yeah. So it's definitely...
Yeah, it is one of those fascinating things because, like, not to like blow up a game into like something more than it isn't, but like it kind of makes you think like about other aspects of life where it's like, what other areas could I use things like critical thinking and genuine care for like the people around me to achieve a goal that we all hope that we can achieve, rather than just being like, oh, well, that didn't work, whatever. And it's like, well, in D&D, there's always something you can do,
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm a worldviews teacher. Like, so it makes me, in my nerdy mind, think like, in what other arenas of life can we adopt that way of thinking? There's always a way out. There's always a way through or around. And these people that I know and love and care about, they're coming with me no matter what. And it's like, I feel like if just we kind of took a second, whether it's learning that lesson from D&D or anything else, what would our life and the lives of people around us look like if that was the mentality that we adopted always, not just when we're playing pretend? Like, we have to find the best possible outcome, and I'm bringing you all with me.
Yeah.
No matter what. That might be like making a game more than what it is, but it makes me think.
I mean, I don't think it's too far-fetched, though. Like, D&D has always been a uniquely positioned game.
Yeah.
It's like... It's like how Survivor says it's like a microcosm of society in the sense of like a TV reality series.
Sure.
D&D is kind of that for like a board game, like a strategy game.
Sure.
Because you can get D&D parties that like the DMs are garbage people and the players are equally garbage people.
Sure.
And they go around and burn orphanages and do like just insane shit like that. And
So you mean a good campaign?
yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
But like there are people out there that like they want to play D&D so that they can enact these like atrocious inner thoughts, whatever.
Sure. Just get them all out,
Yeah, because they know that in any other circle they would get like arrested for some of the things they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can really bring out the worst in people in some situations, but in the vast majority of the time, it brings out the best in people. And you get to see qualities in the people around you that you wouldn't have the opportunity to see otherwise because you're not put in those kinds of situations outside of playing pretend.
True. I was going to say something really cheesy, but yes, I agree. I was going to say
Now you have to.
I know. I was going to say something like, so when you go to work and live just your regular Joe Schmo life, think of your heroic qualities or something dumb like that. But it's true. Like these characters and these qualities that like we wish we could have and express on some level in real life. It's like, what if you did? Like if you have a character that is like never say die and you have just been like just party on your back, hard carrying your team through encounters, and you are just loved for it. What if you did that? Like in your life, just hard carried the people that you love for a time.
Yeah.
Or if you are a character that, like you were talking about, like the little bit, it sounds a little bit more repressed than I thought it was. Like you're a typically maybe more melancholy, maybe more somber, introverted, whatever kind of personality. And that's kind of what you express in your everyday life, is just kind of more subdued. And then you create a character that is just off the wall and fun and quirky, even though I hate that word, like all these things. It's like, what if you gave it a shot?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Again, maybe it's making something more out of something it's not, but things like D&D for me get me thinking about what if, If I'm a dragonborn acolyte, right, and me as a person of faith who wants to take it more seriously as the days go on, and an acolyte character, it's all your faith is it, like in your chosen deity, and that's it. And if you don't like it, that's too freaking bad for you. Like it makes me think like not what if I was a more intolerant person? Because that would be terrible. But like, it makes me think, just like, you know, as a man of faith, like, what if I always strive to be more serious about this than I just was yesterday? You know, like the idiot Mortarion. You know, like what if I had more of that passion to dive headfirst into this thing that I claim I love so much, like him, or go into situations not with like a blind irrational faith, but with the kind of faith that says that exudes confidence, you know, like I will be okay in this situation, so I'm going to keep going forward. You know, I'm not going to jump out of a tree anytime soon, but like, you
I
know,
was just gonna say, what if I break my?
what if I break my legs for God? Because that's what he wants. No,
Morning star for Jesus?
that's right. Oh, it's perfect. But like, I don't know. I think that's just where maybe that's like the former youth pastor or like the teacher in me or whatever. But it always gets me to think like, what if we tried to be a little more like him? Now, if you made a character that likes to burn orphanages and eat people while they're alive, don't be more like them. But like you said, I think the vast majority of us are trying to pick characters that oftentimes exude features and virtues that we wish we kind of exuded a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if you did? You know, give it a shot. I don't know.
D&D is like the perfect place for projection.
Yeah.
Like, put it out there.
Yeah.
What do you wish you were? Be that.
Yeah.
There you go.
You can be that
Have
here with
fun.
us right now.
Yeah.
Go nuts. Yeah.
Go crazy, go
No,
stupid.
no judgment. Yeah. Go crazy, go stupid. Yeah. It's true.
I've definitely made characters, several even, that are reaching for things that I wish I was, you know?
Sure.
And in those instances where that character's goal is to embody a trait that I wish I had, I'm being given by the DM a space to really experiment with that.
Yeah.
And in those instances, I get to do a lot of you know, healthy personal introspection.
Sure.
And say, how does Sam do what his character just did? You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a coping mechanism and a growth mechanism that has been pretty helpful for me over the last few years.
I think it speaks to the maturity and the quality of the individual to be able to see something as immersive like D&D not just as an escape, but then also a tool for growth.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like sometimes we need to just get away, and that's perfectly fine. But if you are also able to see it as this is my time to get away, but then, you know, maybe kind of think on me a little bit. That's a good, healthy thing. Like that's a good thing to do. You know,
Yeah.
that's just developmentally, it's good for you. So it's like, it's cool. Like, I don't know. I think we've gone from Dungeons and Dragons was created by a Satan worshiping bad person and children are killing cats and all this kind of stuff. And then kind of gone all the way to this is genuinely helping me grow as a person. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And it's like, again, it's one of those things. It's like, no, this is what it can be, should be. And a lot of times is, this is just whatever. Like it's no factor.
Yeah, this over here is a weird group of people who are going to do the things they're doing no matter what game you put in their hands.
Yeah.
And they were going to find a reason and a way
Yeah.
to do the stupid shit that they want to
They
do.
were going to kill cats playing Go Fish. It didn't matter. They just wanted to do that. You know? Yeah.
Working on that Animal Crossing museum.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know about this Animal Crossing game.
It sounds a little satanic.
Yeah. Sounds like it's about to animal cross the Lord. See, honey, he's talking in tongues. I don't like it.
Oh man, that is what they're doing.
It is.
It's so freaking funny.
I choose to believe that now.
It's canon. It's lore.
Canon.
It's real. Yes.
Animal Crossing is demonic. You heard it here first, folks.
gee.
It's true. It is. It's bad, just like Pokemon.
Oh,
And-
the Pokemans.
Pokemans. Yeah. Pokemon stands for pocket demons. No, it actually doesn't, but okay. Like,
If that's what you need to hear.
that's right.
I had a whole arc with my parents with Pokemon growing up,
Yeah.
and
Good.
they found out I was keeping Pokemon cards not as secretly as I thought.
Sure.
You know, I had like maybe 15 that I just accumulated from like various friends over the years, and I just like to admire the art on them.
Yeah, of course.
But like my parents were not down with it because every reason you've ever heard.
Sure.
Right? So eventually they're like, listen, we know you keep that thing on you.
That's right.
So I'm like, all right, listen. And I pulled one out. This weird looking motherfucker. This is called Lick-a-Tongue.
Yeah.
He's a
I
weird.
like how you choose one of the most like problematic ones too. Like
He's
he
a
just
weird.
likes to lick people.
Yeah. He's a weird, fat pink kangaroo looking guy
Yeah.
with a really long tongue, and he knows how to stomp and lick. That's what he does.
Yeah.
he is an animal.
Yes.
For all intents and purposes. And from like that was the moment where I saw him kind of go like, okay.
All right, fine.
We're not talking about Spiritomb right now. Let's
Yeah.
go back to this one's a giraffe.
What's this one? Alakazam. He's nothing. He's from a different. He's not even a Pokemon.
That's a Digimon.
There's psychic types. No.
Like yeah,
Giratina?
that one is based on Uri Geller. Okay.
Yeah. See, it always made me laugh. Like growing up, like Pokemon was totally fine, like in our house, and I was obsessed with it. I had so many friends growing up where it's like, oh yeah, like my parents are really uncomfortable with Pokemon. They don't like the psychic types, it's a
Yeah.
little whatever. And then I remember I always asked them like, do they like Star Wars? Oh yeah, my dad loves Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, because they grew up.
Interesting.
And the Force. Huh?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And the Force and no? All right. Yeah, we'll take it out on the nice yellow mouse. We'll do that.
In that instance, though, they always called it like an allegory for Christianity somehow.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Like Anakin becoming Darth Vader is actually Jesus taking the sins of the world. And it's like, no, but he was actually a bad person.
Jesus didn't kill
Anakin killed
younglings?
kids. Anakin killed kids. Might have probably enjoyed it too. Like, I mean, we all enjoyed the meme. What does that say about us? You know? But yeah.
Sinners, one and all.
That makes us funny.
One and all. That makes us funny. It's ironic. It's not bad.
We're quirky.
It's
There you go.
oh gosh.
We're about approaching that
I
time.
was going to say, on that note,
Yeah. As always, what we want you to do is send us your homebrew ideas like usual and your campaign setting ideas perhaps to our email address, summongreaterpod@gmail.com or at summongreater on Twitter. Always love receiving DMs, emails, and comments on any of our social medias, which are all linked down in the description. If you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you should hit the YouTube link because there's video and you can see this big, bald, beautiful man. That's the pitch.
That's the pitch.
and everybody said
That's what
thanks
it
to
is.
Tyler in the comments for coming and hanging out with us and nerding out with the homie.
Thanks for letting me spout off and diatribe forever. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Heck
It was
yeah,
enjoyable,
man.
man.
Thank you.
Had a great friggin' time.
Yeah.
See y'all next week.